Hey everybody. So, embracing low code as a hardcore developer. I came up with this talk because when I first started looking at working at 8base back in November, I was a hardcore developer. I was an advocate, but I was also a hardcore developer, and someone told me about 8base, and I Googled it, and I saw low code, and I went, ooh. Like, I'm a developer. Why would I ever get involved with a low-code platform? Because I like to code, and that's what I do. And then as I started looking into it, I was sold. And I ended up working at 8base, and now part of what I like to do is show developers how low-code can really help them. So, my name is Ray. I am a hardcore developer, but I'm also a developer advocate at 8base. I usually make a crack, because I usually do talks in the States, and I make a crack about being Canadian and sounding polite and stuff. But I'm at home, so I don't have to worry about that. As was told earlier, I love helping developers. So I get involved in organizing meetups. I ran a conference out of Ottawa for a few years, and I was also involved in Random Hacks of Kindness, which is a really cool hackathon that helped not-for-profits find solutions to their tech problems. And then the pandemic destroyed a bunch of that, so not so much anymore. So in order to talk about why you would embrace low-code or as a hardcore developer, the first thing we need to do is really talk about what low-code is. Low-code and no-code. So no-code is basically a platform or service that accomplishes tasks that are traditionally solved by coding without the need for code. Typically, these platforms are drag and drop and point and click. They're intended for non-technical users, and it allows them to build applications without any knowledge of code or any need for code. A good example of this is QuickBase. So we can see here with QuickBase in the top right there, they're developing their data structure with drag and drop, and then they come in here and they create their fields. And you can see, to make things easier, they're not just defining in their data structure what the field type is, but how the data entry would be, so that when they come over onto the page side, it's very quick drag and drop, and it gets them into creating their forms easily. After that, we have low code. So low code runs off the same concept as no code, the ability to create things quickly and easily with minimal code, but low code is supposed to give the ability to code in defined areas of the application so that you can have, they're built more for customization and flexibility for what you need. So they're built for companies that have teams with technical resources, and a great example of this is this amazing company I found called 8base. So they are we're a full stack low code platform. And you can see things like we still have the ability to create your data structure easily with just typing stuff in and selecting things. But then we also add in the capability to do things like calculated fields, where you can put in SQL statements in order to calculate things out. Another example is as you're building your data structure, we're automatically generating a GraphQL API for you based on that data. But we also know that APIs are more than just CRUD. They're also, solving your business problems. So we extend it with serverless functions to allow you to extend your API the way you need. The front end is the same. We have a big drag and drop for you to create your front end, but we allow you to add JavaScript and CSS pretty much anywhere that you need. So that's how a low code works. It gives the same kind of speed as a no code, but allows you as a developer to customize things the way that you need. So when I first started, like I said, I saw low code and I was like, ooh, I'm not sure that that's going to be the thing that I want to get involved in. And so we want to take a look at why developers are wary of low code. I'm sure a lot of this is going through your head. Let's take a look at how low code and no code works. Essentially, what they do is they make decisions for you, right? So they replace code that you would normally do with predefined components. They make the decisions about how those components are put in and how they work. Low code and no code also remove the ability for you to do typical tasks, like things that are common and that you do all the time. You would typically accomplish those types of tasks with code, but the low code and low code platforms make the decision of how to get that done in order to get it to work, right? Now, as a developer, you're kind of wary of this because you want the ability to make decisions. Developers typically, they're like, this is my application. I want to figure out how things work. this leads to things like limited customization. And by the way, my entire presentation is GIFs, basically. I'm going to be posting a version of this presentation that has content in it. So don't worry about taking pictures. You'll get like a real version of this. So low code and no code provide the ability to make things easier because they have predefined components, right? The problem with that is that it can be very limiting in terms of the customization that you can do to those components. Especially with the no-code platform, they have like point and click about little things that you can change, but as a developer, you know, like, I need to make this work a certain way, I need to make this move a certain way, and no-code and low-code can be limiting in terms of that. So that's one of the things that scares a developer. Another problem that people are worried about is technical limitations, right? So a lot of no-code and low-code platforms are really great for two things. One, proof of concept applications. Spin up a proof of concept really easy, nice, blah, blah, blah. Prove it, and then go off and do it in something real. They're also good sometimes for internal applications. So if you have like a company or an enterprise and you're just trying to get something working internally, do some drag and drop and get that happening. But a lot of developers get scared about the idea of using no-code, low-code in a real-world environment because they're worried about things like performance. They're worried about scalability, you know? Is this gonna be able to handle the 10 million users that I want using my application? So that's another thing that tends to steer developers away. Learning curve, right? As a developer, you're like, well, I know Node, I know Python, I know how to do these things, I know how to work pure React. So why would I want to learn how to use a whole new low-code platform in order to get the job done? They get scared of the idea of having to learn something new because they're comfortable, like, right? Like if I want to create a new application, I know how React works, I just spin up React and I get it going. And we think that that's going to be the faster way to do things. Lack of trust, right? One of the big things that as a developer we love to do, I know that I go out to websites and I see cool things happening and I want to dig into that. I open up Inspector, the developer tools, I start looking at network, I start looking at console, I start looking at elements, I'm trying to figure out how things work, right? That's kind of the developer mindset, is we want to break things down and figure them out. When you have no code and low code that's making decisions for you, you don't know what's happening under the hood. You're not sure how security is being implemented, you're not sure, you know, how the elements are being built, how things are scaling, and it can get scary as a developer. You have a lack of trust in the platform, and it kind of steers you away from it. And finally, the fear of being replaced, right? There are two main things when it comes to no code, low code, and the fear of being replaced. Number one is, if a low code platform can do my job, why is the company gonna want me around, right? I don't wanna get involved with that because I don't want them to realize that I can be replaced by the machines and then fire me. The other thing about the fear of being replaced is that I love to code. You know, part of being a developer is I love to code, I love to solve problems, and the code is how I solve the problems. A low-code platform takes the code away from me, then I'm not gonna be able to have fun anymore, right? So, why should developers embrace low-code? This is an example of, yeah, you mean there's a better way to do things? So, first of all, we need to understand that we are constantly trying to reinvent the wheel, right? We're always, like when we start an application up, right, we're doing the same tasks over and over again. We're coding a lot of the same code over and over again, right? When you're first creating a REST API, if you're using Node, you're installing Express.js, you're setting up your routes, you're doing kind of all the typical things that you would normally do when you're first starting an application. I like to call this housekeeping code, right? This is the stuff that you're trying to get out of the way so that you can get to have the real fun, right? You create the same database and the same environment, you create the same REST API. So we do a lot of the same stuff over and over again, right? And as a result, we tend to be wasting a lot of time doing this, right? So like we're taking up these repetitive tasks when we could be forwarding the application a lot faster. And not just forwarding the application a lot faster, I like to talk about this concept called time to fun, right? As a developer, the fun that we get is about solving the unique business problems. So if we're constantly having to kick up the same REST API, build the same routes, add in the same cookies and sessions and authentication, authorization, we're not getting our time to fun happening a lot sooner, we're expanding that out. Full stack should not mean do everything. So back in the day, which some of you might be too young for this, but back in the day, there were back-end developers and there were front-end developers. And there were database administrators. There was a whole plethora of people that were involved in building an application. With the innovations of things like Node.js, we were able to do JavaScript in both the back end and the front end, and we thought that was really cool. Like, we could be full stack developers. We could develop the whole stack. Along the way, full stack started meaning that you kick up your own database. You figure out how to get it production ready and how to make sure that it's redundant. Full stack turned into this thing where we have to learn how to do everything, right? We have to learn how serverless functions get deployed and how to deploy them. There was a whole stack of things outside of just being a developer. Low code gets you back to being just a developer. So one of the great things that low-code platforms can do is take away the necessity of figuring out how to deploy functions, figuring out how to kick up a database and how to make it redundant and how to make sure it gets backed up. Low-code platforms give you back your time as just being a developer. Your task equals your responsibility. So the more that you're asked to do, the more you're going to become responsible for that. So if you have to, as a developer, make sure your serverless functions are deployed, guess what? You're now probably going to be responsible when your serverless functions aren't working correctly. With a low-code platform, the low-code platform becomes the one responsible, right? You don't have to worry about who's in trouble when serverless functions go down, because you could just go, it wasn't me, that was the low-code platform. So by embracing a low-code platform, you get back to just being responsible for your code. If your code breaks, then sure, that's your fault. But if anything else breaks, that's not really something that you have to worry about. Another thing to note is that we're kind of already doing the same concept as what low-code wants, right? We're embracing Copilot to build code for us, to automatically paste code in. NPM libraries, the whole concept of NPM is that somebody's already coded this at some point. So there should be a library that I can just pull in, execute based off that, and not have to worry about it. Stack Overflow. A few weeks back, I was at one of our meetups, and there was a new developer who was trying to get involved, and he was worried about, how much he's Googling in order to find solutions, and that you're laughing already, because I told him that I've been coding for over 15 years, and every day of my life, I've asked Google how to accomplish something. So Stack Overflow is a great way of how all of these concepts are around the idea of making our life easier by taking away the cookie cutter stuff that we don't want to worry about, the crap code, basically. So now that we understand how low code can help us, it's important to know how we can actually embrace low code, because we've got these ideas of how it could solve things, but we're still a little wary of whether or not it's going to be helpful. So first off, you have to embrace the idea of getting help, right? There's a big, I don't know how many of you have it as a developer, but as a developer, sometimes I'm like, just leave me alone, just leave this task alone. I've got it, don't worry about it. Go off, do something else, right? In order to embrace low code, you need to be okay with the idea of getting help. And you're already doing that with NPM, with Copilot, with JavaScript snippets. All of this stuff gives you it gives you the help, and low-code platforms are just another step towards getting help so that you can do the fun that you want to do as a developer. Next, evaluate what low-code can help you with. So this is a good example, and you want to go through the applications that you build and figure out exactly what the steps are. But here I kind of have like a small idea, right? So on your data layer, you're designing your data structure, you're choosing where your database is going to be, what kind of database, do you want SQL or NoSQL, do you want relational? You're creating it, and you're creating all your tables and your fields, right? Those are kind of all the steps that go into data layer. And then you have your data access layer, right? You choose your technology. Are you going to use REST? Are you going to, please don't use SOAP. Are you going to use GraphQL, right? You choose whether you want to do monolith or microservice. You have your options of those. Then you're going to create your API structure. You're going to create all the CRUD for your data. You're going to create your business logic. And then you have to add in your authorization, your authentication. So these are kind of all the steps that happen in a typical process. But you want to go through yours and figure out exactly what steps that you have inside of yours. Next thing you want to do is you just want to play around. Like, go out, find multiple low-code platforms, and evaluate which of these steps that are going to actually help, the low-code platform is actually going to help you with. So this is an example, and I'm going to pull over. Nope, wrong page. I can't pull over. So this is an example of that I built of how 8base can help with this. So the white stuff is all the stuff that 8base takes care of. The pinkish stuff, that's pink, right? I'm colorblind. The pinkish stuff is stuff that 8base and the developer works together with in order to accomplish. And then the red stuff is all the stuff that a developer still has to do by themselves. So when you're evaluating a low-code platform, you can take this kind of concept of seeing what the steps are in your process and then evaluating as you're working with the low-code platform to see exactly what pieces it takes away and what pieces you still have to work with, right? So a good concept of that is we can go through and figure out what makes a good low-code platform. So when you're evaluating these, there's a few things that you want to look at. First off is feature coverage. And that's kind of basically exactly what I just said, right? You go through, you figure out all the features that you want, and you go through and you see which ones the low-code platform does. And you kind of do that same array that I did to figure out, check off the boxes. Okay, it does this, it does this, it does this. You're not going to find a low-code platform that does everything for you, and you kind of don't want to, because then, yeah, your job is obsolete and useless. So you're not, but one of those things is embrace that idea that it's not going to do everything, right? And so it's really just a matter of figuring out which of the low-code platforms does as much of the things as you want as it can. Yes, next, flexibility, okay? So when you're working with these low-code platforms, what you want to do is you want to do some point-and-click, drag-and-drop stuff to get things where it needs to be, and then start digging in to see where you can make the customizations, where you can make the little changes, because that's going to be key to a low-code platform to giving you the flexibility that you want to make the application exactly what you're looking for. Because if you have a low-code platform that's like, lets you drag and drop components, but you can't really mess with the style all that much, you can only do little things, you're not going to be happy, right? Just changing colors is not fun. You want to do some real hardcore stuff. So in a low-code platform, support for things like custom components and predefined style sheets, those are pretty high on the list. But being able to directly modify CSS, being able to directly add JavaScript, those are like gold standards when it comes to a low-code platform. Surprise. Okay. Ease of use, right? When you're working with a low-code platform, it's important to kind of keep an eye on your frustration level as you're working with that platform. Because the more you're moving around and clicking things and getting things working, and the more time that's taking, the more useless that low-code platform is. Because the whole point is that you're trying to reduce your time to fun. So keep an eye on your frustration level, and that's kind of a good gauge is to say, like, the more irritated you are with the platform, the more it's not solving your business problems. And don't expect to find a platform where you're like, everything is fantastic, the whole world is great. As much as 8base does that, I'm sure there's going to be one or two things that annoy you. So don't just find an annoyance and say, it's out, it's done. Because you're going to find annoyances with everything. It's important to go through all the platforms as much as you can and figure out which one annoys you the least, basically. Performance and scalability. One of the really frustrating things is when you build an application. You put all the time in, you put all the work in, you get it deployed, and then it doesn't scale with your success, right? What a pain in the ass that you get 10 million users and then everything's just freezing and crashing because the low-code platform isn't able to handle that performance and that scalability. So you want to investigate the technologies that are being used behind that low-code platform, right? Are they using serverless? Are they using monolith? How do they plan to do the scaling? And it's always good, just ask support the questions, The worst that's going to happen is they're going to say, that's our secret sauce. We're not going to let you know. But the best that can happen is that they tell you exactly how things work. And the good companies will tell you how things work because they want you to trust in the fact that they're going to be able to handle your production. Cost. Cost is always an important thing, right? And it's important to look at how the pricing works for these platforms and compare them with each other, dependent on what your application needs are. If you're planning to build an external application that has tens of thousands and millions of users, and this low-code platform charges on a per-user basis, might not be the low-code platform for you. But it might be okay to be on a per-user basis if you're building internal applications where you're going to have 5 or 10 or maybe up to 100 employees that are working with things. So it's important to find a platform where the pricing matches your needs, okay? A good standard is when a platform is more resource-based, more like the resources that you use help define the price that you're going to pay. There's another concept that's kind of come out. They're trying to do it. I don't think it's working out very well. This whole credit-based concept where you buy like a bunch of units for the company, and then you can move things around depending on how your application works. I don't know if that's going to work. But security, right? It's important to take a look at the data that you're going to be working with and see exactly how the platform handles that. So you need to be aware of the standards. If you're working with medical data, then you got to make sure that your platforms handle the HIPAA standards, right? If you're working with legal data, you got to make sure that the platform can handle digital evidence properly. So most of the if you're going into a platform site, there should be a section where you can see all of the certifications that they've got and all of the protocols that they follow, whether it's HIPAA, SOC, SOC 2, all the ones that 8base has. Those are the important ones to work with. Finally, one of the biggest things, support and community. Not just support, but community is huge, okay? Support is going to be key, and onboarding is going to be key, a key thing. You want to make sure that the documentation and that the onboarding stuff is going to get your people up and running quickly with the platform. You want to make sure that the support that they have is going to be fast, and it's probably going to be a part of the pricing plan to figure out whether or not you want high enterprise support, but a good support also relies heavily on community. So if the low-code platform has a good community base, then they're going to have all of their users are sitting in that community. All of their engineers are also sitting in that community, so that you don't necessarily have to wait for an enterprise person to get back to you within the quote-unquote 24 hours to get things done. But a community is also important because they're going to have more than just support. They're going to have ideas. It's going to be a place. It's going to be a place where you can post your ideas and get feedback on them. So support and community are going to be critical to the low-code platform that you choose, and that's really something that you want to focus on. So, thank you for listening. This QR code will give you all of my contact information. That's all the 8base stuff that I'm legally required to put to get my hotel paid for. And if anybody has any questions, I'm more than open to them.